remembered the vision that the Lord had given Dumitru Duduman. And I don't know if you know him, but he was a Romanian Christian who spent many years smuggling Bibles. And over a 15-year period, he smuggled more than 300,000 Bibles into Russia. In 1980, he was imprisoned for his activities and he was tortured very severely. They tried to kill him, but the angel of the Lord protected Dumitru. The colonel who tried to kill him dropped dead very suddenly, and he was quickly released from prison. And this was given to him in September 1984, when he was already here in America. And it's called America Will Burn. So it starts, late one night I could not sleep. The children were sleeping on the luggage. My wife and daughter were crying. I went outside and walked around. I didn't want them to see me cry. Suddenly a bright light came toward me. I jumped to my feet because it looked as if a car was coming directly at me. But it wasn't a car at all. As the light approached, it surrounded me. From the light, I heard the same voice that I had heard so many times in prison. He said, "Dumitru, why are you so despaired?" I said, "Why did you punish me? Why did you bring me to this country? I have nowhere to lay my head down. I can't understand anybody." He said, "Dumitru, didn't I tell you I am here with you also? I brought you to this country because this country will burn." I said, "Then why did you bring me here to burn? Why didn't you let me die in my own country? You should have let me die in jail in Romania." He said, "Dumitru, have patience so I can tell you." He showed me all of California and said, "This is Sodom and Gomorrah. All of this, in one day, it will burn. Its sin has reached the Holy One." Then he took me to Las Vegas. "This is Sodom and Gomorrah. In one day, it will burn." Then he showed me the state of New York. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. I said, "No." He said, "This is New York. This is Sodom and Gomorrah. In one day, it will burn." Then he showed me all of Florida. "This is Florida." He said, "This is Sodom and Gomorrah. In one day, it will burn." Then he took me back home to the rock where he had begun. "All of this I have shown you. In one day, it will burn." I said, "How will it burn?" He said, "Remember what I am telling you, because you will go on television, on the radio, and in churches. You must yell with a loud voice. Do not be afraid, because I will be with you." I said, "How will I be able to go? Who knows me here in America? I don't know anybody here." He said, "Do not worry yourself. I will go before you. I will do a lot of healing in the American churches, and I will open the doors for you. But do not say anything else besides what I tell you. This country will burn." I said, "What will you do to the church?" With the church. He said, "I want to save the church, but the churches have forsaken me." I said, "How did they forsake you?" He said, "The people praise themselves. The honor that people are supposed to give Jesus Christ, they take upon themselves. In the churches there are divorces, there is adultery in the churches, there are homosexuals in the churches, there is abortion in the churches, and all the sins that are possible. Because of this sin, I have left some of the churches. You must yell in a loud voice that they must put an end to their sinning. They must turn toward the Lord. The Lord never gets tired of forgiving. They must draw close to the Lord. I live a clean life. If they have sinned until now, they must put an end to it and start a new life as the Bible tells them to live." I said, "How will America burn? America is the most powerful country in this world. Why did you bring us here to burn? Why didn't you at least let us die where all the Dudumans have died?" He said, "Remember this, Dumitru. The Russian spies have discovered where the nuclear warehouses are in America. when the Americans will think that it is peace and safety, from the middle of the country, some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government will be busy with internal problems. Then from the ocean, from Cuba, Nicaragua, and Mexico, he told me 2 other countries, but I didn't remember what they were. They will bomb the nuclear warehouses. When they explode, America will burn. What will you do with the church of the Lord? How will you save the ones that will turn toward you? I asked. He said, tell them this, how I saved the 3 young ones from the furnace of fire, and how I saved Daniel in the lion's den is the same way I will save them.
I only really twigged in the last 2 weeks that this is going to happen for sure. And the thing that changed for me when I realized that was I could see that this is something that's coming up in the future, because basically it's being seen by many different people, and they're all seeing the same basic details. Thousands of people actually in the United States are having dreams about this coming war, and the details match up with a shocking degree of accuracy and specificity.
So the vision started like this. I could audibly hear talks about nuclear war starting, and it had to do with the USA. I had the knowing that it was going to be war all over the world. I knew it was going to be World War III as well. But at first, something happened to the nation. Something happened to America. It was either a natural disaster or something big. So there was a lot of talk in the background that was coming from all over the nation. And I could hear government agencies talking, and the government could not deal with all the issues that were going on at once. And it was like everywhere there was chaos, rioting, people crying, screaming, weeping. Government agencies were on high alert, ambulances, sirens, alarms. There was just a lot of commotion and confusion. And I also had the sense of martial law. There was a civil war, a revolution type thing going on. The nation was in chaos, and America was already weak at that point. There was darkness outside. I don't know if it was because of an EMP or... Then I saw a world map on the table where I saw the USA, Russia, and China. And as I'm hearing all the talks in the background coming from different cities in America, I have the sense that the East Coast and the West Coast were attacked.
I saw in this dream multiple horsemen, and it was actually 4 horsemen. And the first horseman, or the one that was actually sent out, had a rider on it that was wearing clothing, but the clothing was made out of the American flag. And the clothing signified the United States of America. So this all took place as I was gathered at a church service of one of my friends whose father is a pastor. We were at his church, and we were all there discussing as Christians, like how we can have peace. And during that discussion, it was inevitable that war was coming, and there was nothing that we can do about it. So the rider with the American clothing was released, and he was told to go out and warn the nations of a war that was coming. And he was carrying a specific message. So the message that the rider had was this. The message was, and they will dip their spears in blood, and they shall fall in the pool thereof. And once I heard this quote, the imagery that I saw was people being stabbed in the side by a spear.
It was like overlaid, and it was this story of the U.S. president. I see him, and he grabs his left shoulder. He suddenly slaps his hand onto his breast, and then I see this ambulance racing toward the hospital. And somehow that's associated, the timing or the events are correlated with the coming war.
And boom, breaking news, breaking news. And the breaking news was about former President Donald Trump is deceased. It was horrible. It was like 1 minute everybody was in silence. And the crazy thing is he was actually going to be running for president again. So basically it was around that time. So when I went outside, as soon as the news came, like you heard this big loud cow, like a thunder, like really loud. It was so loud. So I went outside. Everybody went outside to see what was going on. It's like 1 minute the sky was all clear and normal, and all of a sudden this heavy thick cloud just covered the entire sky, and the sky looked like it was active. It was like it was like roaring, like it was just so awful.
Then I was watching a hurricane-like storm that grew in great strength, and it flowed from near Indonesia and the Asian waters over there near Japan, China, Taiwan. And it was like a hurricane. It was growing in power and strength, and it rumbled and spread all the way across the Pacific Ocean. And it became green as it hit the west coast shoreline of the United States of America.
It was the worst lightning. The lightning was so loud. It was frightening. Like you can feel the shivering in your body, in your flesh, in your soul. Like you can feel that this was God's way of being angry with the whole world. Like his wrath was just really, really on full blown. It was just everywhere. So I'm watching all of this. I'm looking at all of this, and it was like, wow, this is crazy. But this is what I was seeing. And then while all of this was happening, another breaking news: China, Russia, a big part of the world was forming to come against America. Now that Donald Trump was gone, now that he was out of the way, everybody was gonna cling on to America. Everybody wanted America. America was like a prize to them. Like everybody felt like they can just take America. I don't know why after what happened to Trump happened, everyone felt like they can just come here and just try to take the country from us. But everybody was we were going to war with just basically everybody.
Over the years, so many people have seen a future war between the U.S. on one side and Russia and China on the other side. The following is what Monique Bizet.
I was running from the very lowest part of Florida all the way down near Miami. Somehow I was there, and I could see ships off of our coast. Somehow I knew that these were not our ships. There was fire falling from the sky. Now guys, let me make this clear first off. This was not just happening in Florida. I was supernaturally aware that something massive was happening on a worldwide scale.
In this one, I saw warships that just appeared in America. I didn't see where they were sailing and came slowly across the sea. No, what I saw was just fog. So it was a cold day, and I saw that it was the East Coast. All along the eastern shoreline of the United States, I just saw these huge gray boats, these massive warships just emerge out of the fog and go on like the gravel of the beach. And then America was sleeping. That I was standing on the beach right there watching this thing coming, and parking on the beach. And they were full of soldiers. And I knew, looking at them, that these were the best of their country. The understanding just came into my heart. These are special
someone
forces.
else, and we were looking out over the coast, and there was a lot of ships out there, military ships, and they were performing drills. And I looked away for a moment, and the person with me pointed out, look, they're fighting. And so the drill had gone wrong or something like that, and they were shooting and destroying each other. As this happened, I noticed a large force come out of the ocean, and there were ships that I've never seen before. They were like submarines, but they didn't look like submarines. the sides joined forces and obliterated the other side, which it felt like they destroyed the US ships, and then they headed for shore. So before this happened, I got the feeling in my dream that we knew they were performing drills. We were told that there was going to be drills going on in the ocean. And for that reason, we weren't very suspicious, and we didn't have a lot of apprehension about the situation. So,
in the dream, I'm at Santa Monica. In Santa Monica, California, I'm over by like the pier, which is like it's got like seems like a fair or carnival type atmosphere, and it was in the daytime, and it was real sunny. And for some reason, I thought it was the weekend, you know, and everyone was just going about their business. And what happened was we were looking out towards the ocean, and everyone was looking out there, and what we saw was like a foreign navy, and it was either like a Chinese navy, or like the Russian navy, and there were submarines out there that had surfaced, and no one seemed alarmed. It was like entertainment. Everybody was looking at it, checking it out, and wondering, you know, what's that about and whatnot. Then all of a sudden, they started launching missiles, all types of like missiles, bombs, so to speak, towards the entire Los Angeles area, and they started bombing us, and people started panicking and running everywhere.
It came out of the blue. We didn't expect it, and we were being invaded. And I believe we were being invaded by Russia. People who lived where I live were just focused on their cell phone and technology, and like they were just looking at their phones, and we were being invaded. And it was the impression that I got was that this couldn't happen. They didn't believe that in this day and age, with the technology and everything, that an invasion could happen.
All of a sudden, I was up above the earth, looking down upon the earth like a globe. As I looked down on the earth, I saw all of these massive amount of all kinds of ships and airplanes that were coming from up above Norway out of this inlet. They headed down between the United States and Europe. They literally covered the whole Atlantic. Then I began to see all of these submarines emerging from under the surface. I was surprised at how close they were to our borders. And when I saw these submarines come up so close, along the eastern border, that was the exact same reaction I had. I was amazed. I thought, how can they be right there? This is impossible. How can they come so close? Who allowed this? It's what I was thinking. It was just, I was amazed. Then I saw the missiles come out of them. They hit eastern coastal cities of the United States, and that's what I saw as well. They hit the densest, biggest cities. That's where they had the most missiles landing. I looked over across the country where my family was, over in the northwest side, and I saw the submarines. I saw the missiles coming out and hitting the western coastal cities. What I saw was fewer strikes on the west, and I didn't see the submarines. I saw Seattle hit, I think 2 down near San Diego and Los Angeles, and another one in the center of the state somewhere. I cried out and said, oh God, when will this be? And what shall be the sign of its coming? What shall be the sign of its coming? I heard an audible voice speak to me and say, when Russia opens her doors and lets the masses go, the free world will occupy themselves with transporting, housing, and feeding and caring for the masses, and will let down their weapons and cry peace and safety. Then sudden destruction will come. Then is when it will come.
I was on a vessel out in the ocean somewhere. I don't know whether it was the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. I have no clue. All I know is I was on this vessel with American troops, okay? And it seems like the soldiers, the troops, they were not preparing for war or anything like that. They were just doing maintenance and pretty much going around doing their basic duties. So now it was pretty much an aircraft carrier. That's what it looked like to me. However, out of nowhere, folks, emerged an enormous amount of helicopters, aircraft, and they started bombing this fleet, this vessel that I was on. And I noticed from the helicopters, there was ladders being dropped out. People were coming down from the ladders. People were coming down. Soldiers were coming down on parachutes.
You can see these the drone of these huge bombers coming off in the distance. We're looking out into the Pacific Ocean, and you could hear these things before they were coming. And they were Russian, and they were coming towards them. They flew right over our head, and I was in a sand bunker trying to shoot this thing, just like it was like World War II. And the big takeaways from this dream, I'm getting chills right now, guys. I believe this is the Holy Spirit. The big takeaways from this dream was that an EMP had gone off. The only communications we had were radios, and I was trying to communicate with the other Marines via radio. And at one point in the dream, I had to run from one sand bunker. I had to sprint on foot in the sand to the other sand bunker just to get communications to these other Marines.
And the TVs were on, and I noticed everyone else was drawn to the televisions, and they were all watching the TV very intently, like no one was looking away. And I walk up and I tap someone on the shoulder. I say, "What's going on? What's going on?" And he looks at me and he goes, "World War III just started." All of a sudden, everyone was in pandemonium. Everyone was shocked. The faces were so shocked. They looked so lost. So I got my family and I ushered them to the car. I was trying to like calm my dad down. And so I got them in the car, and because everyone else was acting very crazy and in an unpredictable manner.
Recently, the Lord Jesus gave me a vision of a massive army coming from Russia into Alaska, down into Canada, and finally into the United States. It moved down through the West Coast states into the southwest part of our country.
I was standing in a square courtyard, and I saw Putin's face, and then I looked up and there was a gray missile.
I was in an open field and walking with some loved ones, and I look up in the sky and I see several planes that are flying in formation. And then as I look closer and look across the horizon, suddenly hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of planes just start appearing. And there was no question it was an invasion. That was made clear to me in my spirit, that there was a knowing that there was an invasion occurring. And I had the sense that they were Chinese or Russian. Don't ask me why. I know that seems so cliche, but that's what it sounded like. So
I had a knowing that both countries were in on it. In China, there were missiles already set up, and they were being launched from there. There were just too many to count. And I started to draw on my piece of paper where the missiles were coming from and what direction they were being launched from. I drew so many lines coming to the USA.
So this thing just blows up, and then back in the command room, it says like, hey, this thing disappears, and the general's like, well, get it back on the screen, as if that's like an option. And they said, well, we can't get it. He said, well, get into contact with them. There's another plane, and then this one also blows up the same way. Boom. It's not like there's an explosion near it that blows off a wing and it goes down. No, the thing just blows up. And again, back to the command center. Hey, another one disappeared, and nobody can figure out what happened to that one. And then a third one disappears, and then this general just screams. He's like, somebody get me some answers. And he's really furious. And you can understand why, because, wow, what a position to be in. So now, the last scene, I see these three little planes. Now, they were a little short, they were fat, they had like some kind of burners in the back, and it looked like it had like one little bubble canopy for maybe a single pilot. I don't know, I could have the size wrong. That's what the proportions looked like, and they seemed like they were very small. And there was I don't remember now if I saw two or three. I think maybe it was three. And these things, but what was really curious about these planes is that they were painted a bright candy apple red with metal flakes in it. So like a metallic candy apple red. But these things, when they hit those P-3 Orions, or whatever these big Air Force ships were, they were invisible. Like the P-3 Orions, they couldn't see anything. The technicians, they never saw these other planes. But so this was some kind of an invisible aircraft that the Russians had. And I've seen on Czechoslovakian websites them talking about that the Russians do actually have a plane that's capable of total invisibility, both to radar and to the naked eye.
Ground. It was nighttime, and I turn and look back up into the sky, and then suddenly see dozens and dozens of lights descending very quickly this time out of the sky, and they start to strike everywhere, and they're missiles, and these missiles are exploding all around us. And an interesting thing with this one was I shared this with my wife the next morning, and she also had a dream that night of a missile attack on the United States the same night.
Years later, I saw a similar pictographic, and I thought someone had the same dream, and I opened it up, and it was a map of the population centers, where a large circle represented a larger population. So now I understand that basically they were nuking according to population distribution. It was just an attack to just kill numbers, not a military target.
You guys, this dream was so real that I cannot go back to sleep. Some type of missile was in our air, and we scrambled to intercept it. When it hit, the silvery hot metal started flying in big clumps in the air. I was getting a vision.
I remember seeing me covering both of my ears and the earth beneath me shaking from missiles flying down, pounding our land. The sound of the blasting missiles and rockets crashing all around me outside of this sturdy, soundproof building, with my ears intensely covered up, was deafening to me as I shouted, "Father, please protect me." I shouted.
I was looking over like a huge city. I don't know what city it was, but it was really big. And, and everything was quiet. And then it was like slow motion. You just saw a nuclear explosion just come up. And then it was just silent. It was really eerie. And, the city was so big, but you'd think only one nuclear explosion would do the job, but it didn't. And then it's like, as that one's going, that's like way over here in another part of the city, you see another one, just slow motion.
Bright light, like this contrail. This glowing like contrail coming in, like of a huge missile, and there was a city in the distance. You could see the skyline, and it was approaching the city. And I ran instantly, for some reason I knew what to do, and I ran over to the couch. I told my friends who I was with, I said, "Get behind the couch." I quickly flipped over the couch and I stacked something on top. It only took a couple of seconds, and at the same time I was getting the vision of the bomb coming in the dream, and it hit, and it was just blinding flash of light. You do not want to look anywhere near the direction of any types of missiles if they're going to drop, because you can get permanently blinded.
It was nighttime, and I was in my home with my wife and some loved ones, and I hear this, or I feel this and hear this, feel this shake and hear this kind of poof. And I look outside to the east, and this gigantic mushroom cloud, guys, it was insane. And this mushroom cloud started to form, and then the waves coming towards us, all I did was I knew there was no way to get away. So I turned around and I grabbed my family, and I got in between my family and this thing that was coming, and then that was the end of the dream.
The shockwave, the ground rumbling, and then the shockwave hit, the shockwave of the nuke, and my vision went. It just went blinding light, my vision faded, my hearing was gone, and I woke up and everything in the apartment was in the place was knocked over. The couch was still in the one spot, and my friends, they were still alive and they were fine. They were knocked on their backs, and I got up and I saw the devastation. I could see some of it out the window. I saw the house was damaged, so I told them, "We can't stay around here. Quickly grab a backpack and any food and water. We have to leave." I'm going to check outside to see if anyone's alive. So I walk outside and I see that the house we were in was destroyed. It was partially destroyed, but its structure and integrity held up. And then I looked around at the other houses in the neighborhood, and they were like totally destroyed. And I could see bodies strewn everywhere, very gory, like in pieces, and it's very nasty. And
I sense a power shift, nuclear, sudden. Craft carriers, Russian drones. Suddenly the drones drop. They're dropping nuclear bombs. City, another city. Vegas, East Coast. Cities are targets. Boston, Philadelphia, Georgia. They're trading secrets right now. They are trading off. Tyrants doing the trade-offs with Putin. So this is people in America doing trade-offs, selling out America with Putin. Selling our nation out. What is the USA? Crafty snake, says the Lord, selling the nation out to Putin. Finance. Putin is a shrewd traitor. He is ruthless. He will topple the nation. San Francisco, Cincinnati, other targets around the coastlines. Renegade. There were so many words, but I just wanted to remember some of the cities that I felt was going to be targeted by the enemy. One of which was Seattle, San Francisco, Las Vegas, the Basin. So I believe that was New Orleans.
America. So it wasn't at 8 o'clock. It happened on the East Coast, and then the people on the West Coast got the news, and they were able to do something and block it and send out the special forces. No, it was as if a crab held America, like sew, like this, like a vice. Happened almost simultaneously, and it was such a smooth operation. It was so silent that I tell you, even this persistent news media, they had no clue. There was not even a chance for America to get on the news and go, run for cover. There was nothing. The relentless security machinery of the United States never had a chance to go into action. There was terror in the population because the invasion was quiet for several hours. The nation was taken over so smoothly that people woke up and drank orange juice and had showers and got their kids out of bed, and the TV never told them Russians and Chinese are in control of the United States.
Embedded high up. Myself and many others were waiting to attend a meeting. I'm not sure if it was a church meeting or if it was a town hall meeting. And then suddenly, and I mean suddenly, we began to feel the very ground shake beneath our feet. Then we began to hear the sound of a very loud roar. It was getting closer and closer and closer. It was a large armada of fighter jets, cruise missiles, and drones completely filling the skies. These foreign forces then began to attack both structure and civilian. Crowds of people began to panic. Huge buildings began to collapse. And I just stood there for a second and watched all that was going on around me as the battle ensued. And then suddenly the thought came to my mind. In a moment of time, life has just changed forever as I knew it. And nothing will ever be the same again.
But I was standing in my old neighborhood and I was looking up at the sky and I saw a huge blood moon. At the same time, I saw military planes in the sky, and they were dropping bombs. I also saw people running around screaming and frightened and terrified. Then all of a sudden, I saw these tall, had to be about 10 or 15 feet, demonic figures. They had the form of a man, but they had no features. They were just completely dark, like shadow black. But they had a bow and arrow in their hands. Each of them had bows and arrows. It had to be about, I can't even count. And they were shooting arrows at people as they were running. And the girl to my left said, listen guys, if we just do what they say, everything will be okay. So I looked at her and I turned to her and I said, are you crazy? No, we can't. No, Jesus is coming soon and we just have to stand firm. No, repent of your sins because the Lord is coming. This scene, I saw myself on my knees with my hands behind my back, as if I was handcuffed. And there was a man standing over me. He had a sword. And it looked as if he was about to chop my head off. And when he raised the sword, and as it was coming down, I heard a woman scream, China!
Hundreds. There were so many they were covering the sky. They looked like locusts. More and more kept flying in, and they had no way of escape. The traffic was totally at a standstill, and no one could drive away. In her vision, it happened suddenly, with no warning.
I was on some sort of military base, so it's open, and we're just kind of looking, up at the stars. It's beautiful. The sky is, and then I'm talking about tons of shooting stars are going by, and then all of a sudden, there's this big boom explosion. I'm like, what the heck was that? And we look at each other. Meanwhile, these are all going. And then all of a sudden, I see a parachute. Another explosion. Boom! Closer. And then when that happens, we see tons of parachutes. Tons of parachutes. And we're like, are those real people? And I see one in particular. There's a guy on fire. I remember seeing one, and the person looked Chinese. They looked, Asian. I could see his face, and he looked angry. So these people are coming down. Meanwhile, and the whole time these comments are just, it looked like it could have been hundreds, thousands, I don't know. And so at this point, we get up and we take off, and I remember running into the hangar, and there's soldiers, our soldiers, American soldiers in there. And I was like, is this real? Is this real? And the soldier was like, keep going. Yes, it's real. We're being invaded. And behind me, I can hear the yells of, it sounds like the yells of the Chinese soldiers, because it's like a battle yell. It's like, as they're charging.
And they came and they had orders to kill on sight. So I watched these people running up the beach, and the ships were the first wave. So whatever this attack will be, it's going to come by sea first, but there was more to come by air. And I saw that it was a dual attack. The East Coast was invaded first, and then the West. So it was New York side first, and then the California side. What I saw was that the sky was full of parachutes.
I looked to the east, and when I looked to the east, I saw two Russian guys, and I didn't know they was Russian, but my spirit told me that they was Russians. And then I seen like a line full of Chinese.
A dream that he had about the United States being invaded by China. In his dream, he also saw Russia attacking the United States. And somehow in his dream, he was told that Russia had the help from Cuba.
And I was on a field, and I was next to two American soldiers. They were set very low, like in a trench, and they had full armor. And in the distance, I could see a wooded area. And out of it were coming a group of about 5 to 6 Chinese soldiers. As they started getting near to them, I could see one of the American soldiers telling to the other, the Chinese are here. And
people running around, citizens, Angelinos, if you will, running around everywhere, all over, crying, screaming, in total panic like I've never seen in my life, not even in the movies. And there were soldiers. They were paratrooping, parachuting onto the streets. They were running around everywhere. It seems like the whole place had been invaded.
I have a lot of dreams, more visions than dreams, but my dreams are always personal to me and what's happening in my life. So for me to have a dream like this, it feels a little different. In this dream, I was in China, and everything was frantic in China. Everybody was, rushing to get something, to get somewhere.
I was in China, and when China invaded the United States, America retaliated, and there was already ships and stuff surrounding China, and seas surrounding China. There were ships waiting to attack just in case anything ever breaks out, any war. And I was there, and I was sent in, and I saw streets in China just blown up. Like, it was crazy. There was rubble everywhere, and there was Chinese troops trying to defend.
Had an outright dream of a military campaign against the Russian army. So there was just outright mass chaos, shooting everywhere, soldiers fighting. But it was definitely an American versus Russian situation. So that one carried on and really kind of settled into a place in the dream where the Russians ended up overtaking the Americans and capturing them.
And it was like I could see a rail cart traveling down a railway, and they had tanks on the back of it, and there was a comparison. I heard a voice in my dream saying, "This is the US tanks, see the size of them." And I could see, and there were, normal sized tanks. And then it said, "This is the Russian tank, see the size of it." And then it showed me the image of this like large field, and there was this huge monstrous tank. It was like it was like 50 or 20 times the size of a normal tank. And it didn't look like a real tank. It seemed like it was trying to convey to me the difference in military power. It was more than what people had understood.
And I saw this dream, and I see there's this military officer, and suddenly he gets this call, and somebody says, "Hey, that thing you've been warning about all these years, well, it's coming now." So he runs, and what happens is all these people get activated into the military. People, even ROTC cadets, and they don't even have enough weapons to give everybody a weapon. And there are problems with logistics, and both coasts are occupied by enemy soldiers. And I see this battle. It takes place. It wages for most of the day. The Americans successfully defend their position, which is dug in. There are a lot of dead Chinese soldiers out in front of their area, but they're also desperate for ammunition. So in the night, men run out and recover ammunition from dead Chinese soldiers. They're risking their life to do it, but that's how desperate they are for ammunition. So
in the dream, I saw Russian mortar crews firing mortars, kind of like an 81 millimeter mortar, inside the city limits of Columbia, Tennessee. They were firing it from a hilltop into residential areas. And then they took me captive. And in the process of me being captive, they began to do things to me to inflict pain. They had me in like a tent area, a barn area, something like that. And every time that they would do something to inflict pain on me, they would all look at me, but I was feeling no pain. The first time that happened, as they all looked at me, I just pointed toward heaven, implying, it's my God who strengthens me. And one of the Russian soldiers raised his hand with me that very first time.
I saw military armies coming over the hill in one of my dreams. In my other dream, I saw a nuclear explosion going off in Virginia.
There was a small group of people in the United States, like the militia, the Minutemen, so to speak, the brave. There was a group of people that decided they're going to fight back, and they had their rifles, hunting rifles, their firearms and whatnot, and they were pretty organized for these groups, and they were civilians. It was not the military. It was us, regular people in neighborhoods, got their guns and band together like old veterans and stuff, guys that knew a little bit about fighting and whatnot, and they grouped together and they fought back, and they fought valiantly, and they were like heroes. I mean, they fought to the death, and that was the thing, is they were all killed, they were all slaughtered, but they fought nobly, and the thing is, it was such a small group that it's like they didn't have a chance. It was a well-planned attack. I mean, we were overwhelmed, and it was evident that the United States was falling. That was the thing in the dream, and it was evident that this was the end times. It was the end times. I couldn't tell you if the rapture had already occurred. I don't know. I don't know if it was like before the rapture or after the rapture, but what I knew is that it was during the tribulation. We were in the tribulation, and the United States was falling, and everybody knew it in their hearts. It was evident. This was the end. This is what we've been hearing about.
I seen the outline of the U.S. Okay, I seen the outline of the U.S. and then I seen it said USA, and it had and then I seen in this dream a big X went through USA. It went through the map of USA, and I seen just these two words coming, boom, and it said China and Russia.
And what's so crazy is that I also saw American people marching with them. I believe they were American people who really hate this country. I heard screams, I heard cries, and I also saw people coming out of their houses with guns, trying to protect themselves, trying to protect their families. And I saw this U.S. official, and he had the voice of Mike Pompeo, and his voice had this sound of defeat in it. And I remember hearing him say, he said, the U.S. dollar no longer has value.
All of a sudden, there was a banging on the door, and there was Asian military that came into the house. We were all very scared. So we have these Asian military men barging in, in our house, and they were rummaging through our stuff, and we didn't know what they were doing. We had no clue.
And as I was sitting in my office, the Russian troops were coming down the road in their tanks, and they were marching down the road like they were going house to house. And they just came through my gate. They went straight back to my garage, which I've had a church there since 2015. They went into the garage, and they were tearing my garage apart. They were pulling the Bibles off of my bookshelf. They were throwing them on the floor, and they were ripping them up. They were stomping on them. And when I came into the garage, I was devastated, and I threw myself on top of the Bibles. I was screaming, no, no. And they just started kicking me and punching me. And that was the end of the dream.
Very worrisome. I see this ship. It comes, and on the deck they have all these people. They're Americans, and their Chinese sailors are just throwing them. They're hogtied with their hands and legs behind their back, and they're just throwing them over the side of the ship. And it's not a short fall, and throwing them onto a rocky beach where they're just landing there, and they're supposed to be picked up later. Top. And I understand.
They'd set up a roadblock, and they ordered everyone to get out of the bus at machine gun. They had machine guns. And
I keep having war dreams. So in the middle of the night, in the hours that people would be caught off guard, Chinese soldiers came out of nowhere and were killing and capturing people. People were so off guard that when they came to people's houses, they didn't even have time to get their guns to defend themselves.
One of our brothers about it, who was an officer in the Army, he told me that he had a dream when he was 5 years old that he was hiding from the Chinese. Now, he lived in Virginia. In the dream, all his family was gone, and he was the only one left. The Chinese army was searching house to house for any Americans still alive, and somehow they didn't see him because he was told in the spirit that if he didn't move, they wouldn't find him. So he stayed still and was safe. I also have had many visions about Chinese snipers in the trees in the southeastern United States, as well as them landing in Florida under the cover of night.
Like the police, or maybe another, it was like our military or something, were guarding us, like they were protecting us, and they said, come on guys, move along. And then all of a sudden, like, I got so scared because I heard marching, and I look out the windows of this building, and there's a whole bunch of military, and it wasn't US military, it was like, and they started like loading their weapons, and they were getting ready to shoot everyone in the store. And then I remember the guards that were letting us in, that told us we had a time limit, were like, wait, just give them like trying to bargain with them, just let him leave. And they said no, and they basically wanted to just kill all of us. And I remember running
out there, and out of nowhere, I remember hearing noise like airplanes were coming. Everybody was looking up, and then we just seeing like war planes just boom coming, and they just started shooting. No mercy at all. No mercy. They were shooting down. People didn't know what to do, where to go. These people didn't have no mercy on the people that was there. We ran for hours and hours and hours. Everywhere we went, they were shooting. They were blowing up places. They were doing a lot of stuff. As soon as the first planes came, I remember I got hit several times. I remember feeling it go through my head and just go in different places in my body. I got hit so many times because it was like raining bullets. It was raining bullets. That's the best way to explain it. I got hit over 10 times, I would say. But let me tell you, not once I felt pain. Not once I felt or seen blood on me. Not once I fell. Not once I was weak.
In the dream, I knew that the Chinese army were coming towards the building that I was in. I could overhear their voices, heavy machinery, tanks, and as soon as I heard them coming, I turned the light off in the room that I was in. And as soon as I did that, a light came on right away from behind me. And I did not see the source of that light, but I knew that it was from God. And as I started walking outside, I knew that there was a place of safety in that hill that I could see in the distance. So this light was guiding the path that I was walking on towards that hill.
And so in regards to my husband's visions, he's only had visions one time, and they all came in the same night. Because our family, we are new in Christ. Sometime last year at the end, in the fall, we started seeking the Lord, and we're really new in Christ. And so my son, he's only 8, and the things that have how God has been working in his heart has been crazy. He will feel the Holy Spirit. He'll feel all this warmth inside. He'll tell me how, Mom, I just feel all this warmth inside, and I just love God. I just love Jesus so much, Mom. And it just warms my heart. And so he has felt the need to talk to certain people about the Lord. He feels like the Holy Spirit guiding him to do so. He's had a message from me. There was, when I first got the message about, World War III and the nuclear bombs, and I started to realize that the end times are coming. I actually was hoping in my heart that I was going to be taken out with one of the nuclear bombs. I thought, oh, it'd be nice just to be taken out quickly and not to have to suffer through the tribulation. And so there was this one night that my son came up to me and he said, Mom, I have a message I have to tell you. And he said, the Lord wants you to know that if you have faith, that he will protect you from those bombs. And I felt like that message meant so much more than that. I do have faith that God would protect me if that's his will. But I felt like the message meant more, because God knew that in my heart I was hoping to go out with one of these bombs. And I felt like this was God telling me, this is not your time. That's not my will for you. You have a job to do, and that job is to save souls. And I feel like he's preparing me for something in the time of the end. And I don't really know what that is. But I feel like that was a message of, have your job's not done, and I need to have faith in God's will for me. And so my son had a dream. He had a dream that he was kneeling down and he was praying, and there was a military soldier, and he was stabbed by this military soldier. And he told me, he goes, Mom, he goes, but he stabbed me, but nothing happened. I was okay. I was fine. And I was just praying, and I was fine. And it just breaks my heart, but it makes me so, we're so blessed that God is preparing our family like he is, and preparing us for what's to come mentally, and getting us prepared. And I feel like he was telling my son too, no matter what we're going to face in the future, you have faith in me, and you pray, and prayer is your first line of defense, just to always pray.
There are some very much some common themes to all of these dreams which all match up. So talking about the US first. It's a series of sneak attacks by Russia and China. Some of these dreams also give details about the militaries of other countries being involved in this invasion, and it's definitely Russia and China. Some of them say it's also Iran, North Korea, and Colombia, interestingly enough. Some of them talk about the US doing something really bad, the US government, to Colombia in the coming years between now and when that conflict begins, and it really pisses the Colombians off, so they actually send some of their army to fight in the US to kind of get their own back, to get even. It's really, really, really bad, unfortunately. A common element is that nuclear weapons are used early on, and a lot of the large American cities are hit with nuclear weapons. Something really bad happens to a lot of the big cities in the Northeast. There are invasions, there's landings on the beaches on the West Coast. In California, people have seen in these dreams that Russian and Chinese troops are coming ashore in summer. So summer in the Northern Hemisphere is June, July, August. In terms of the timing, it's interesting to note that a lot of people are seeing Trump 2024 signs in people's yards and on for example, the uniforms of militia, American militia who are fighting against the invasion forces. I've seen some people comment that this could mean it's going to happen next year or 2023. I actually believe this would put it in the middle of 2024, because the American elections happen in November, and they don't usually start putting those flags out for campaigning any more than a year before the election. And if it happens in summer, well, yeah, if they're not putting those materials up more than a year out from the election, they're not going to be putting them up in summer 2023. So from my perspective, it would seem between June and August 2024 is when this will start. Yeah, it's super intense. They've been planning this for decades apparently, and they have all these secret super weapons which we don't even know about, which they're going to deploy. And the Americans are really caught off guard. Yeah, because there is this tendency in the American shadow to, I'm going to say the Anglo shadow, because I can't talk about Americans, that's not fair, because that's not my group. I should only really criticize my own group. So what I am going to say, and I have genuinely observed this, New Zealand is the same. There's a tendency to kind of often just regard ourselves as better and more capable by default. And okay, hubris, this is what I'm getting at, hubris. This is a very strong sense of hubris. So we've been so successful and so prosperous for so long that we can never imagine that anything bad could happen to our countries. And that's actually quite understandable when you look at the history of New Zealand, Australia, the UK, Canada, and the United States in the last 60 years. There's been so much prosperity. Nothing really, really bad has happened. Bad things have happened, but not, absolute catastrophe, which is about to happen. So That's what I'm getting at here. And yet you can see that hubris in all of our countries' history. If you don't have your ego in check, you're just going to think you're invincible and bulletproof. But if you've got a longer view of history and an eye for potential risks and dangers coming up, you'll see that there's definitely issues on the horizon. The hubris in all of our countries means that we're going to be taken off guard. We just can't imagine it ever happening. They're stronger than we anticipate. Their military capability is much more advanced. Another insight I had about this in the last couple of days, our countries tend to see military strength in terms of dollar figures and hardware. We don't consider some of the other aspects. For example, you could actually have a much smaller army and have spent much less money, but you could have much more advanced weapons, and you could have the advantage of surprise. You know, there are a lot of things that an invading force could do with really good intel and some really advanced weapons to nullify that advantage in terms of, you know, numbers of planes and lots of stealth fighter jets and things like that countries like the US have. And what people have seen in these dreams is that they're using EMP weapons. Apparently they EMP 2 Pacific fleets. That's one of the reasons they're able to land on the coast of California. Apparently they're just drifting after that, according to some of these accounts. Apparently a lot of people have seen planes just dropping out of the sky because their electronics are all fried. Of course that affects the communications, the comms for the military, which is extremely important. People have seen in these dreams nuclear missiles hitting Missouri, they've seen them hitting Texas, the northeast area. Apparently, according to some of the dreams, there's some hit around the Seattle region, parts of California, near San Francisco. This is really, really intense. They're trying to destroy the US. They're like, you know, they're going for the jugular. They want, like, metaphorically, figuratively speaking, they're trying to cut the US's throat. They're there to destroy the US. They're not messing around. It's like, it's going to be a fight to the death, basically, you know, because, I mean, there's going to be nowhere to run. But yeah, as I'm saying, if you had to pick any part of the US to be in, you'd want to be in pockets of the South and Midwest, where the civilians are so heavily armed, and the right to self-defense and free speech is so ingrained in them that they'll just fight them off. So there will be parts that won't be able to conquer them because the people are too heavily armed. And actually, I find of the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and the UK, I find Americans from the Midwest and South to be the kindest, most sweet-natured, and just in terms of their spiritual core, they're the best people in all of those countries. By far. By far. A lot of the people in the rest of those countries, there's a dark energy. And yeah, it's not an accident a lot of people having these dreams are from that part of the US.
Hey guys, so a quick word. I know the video has been long already, but I wanted to make some important comments. One, if you've seen this video, you hopefully have seen the other dream compilation videos I've done on phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of what I believe will be the Red Horseman's impact on America. If you haven't seen those yet, go watch them. Because frankly, if you don't see those happening, then this phase 4 you just watched probably won't happen either. But I think, unfortunately, I wouldn't be doing these videos if I didn't think these things were probably going to happen sooner rather than later. That said, you'll notice if you have seen those other dream compilations, the pattern is phase 1 is riots and chaos in the street. Okay, neighbor killing neighbor, just total devolution of society in America. Phase 2 is actually pitched civil war battles, states seceding and Obama leading an army. Okay. Phase 3 is an EMP attack where we have a loss of power for 4 to 6 months at least. And then phase 4 is the invasion by Russia and China, which you've just seen. Now, you'll notice that, how do we know this order? You saw several dreams in this compilation that confirmed that talked about how there was civil riots and unrest first, that the government couldn't keep up with it, that there was great division, nobody knew who the leader was, and that we were without power. Many of the dreams have talked about all those things having been in place before the invasion. So that can bring some comfort. If you don't see those things happening, then you're probably not going to see Russian and Chinese soldiers the next day. You're going to have to see those things happening first, is my best understanding. Okay, another thing just about the body of dreams. So to give you an, I talked about in the first video, phase 1, I talked about how many dreams there were for every category. Again, if you go back and look at the phase 1 video, there's a small handful of dreams that talks about Trump coming back into office and getting the elections thrown out and everything going back to him, and that is the source of the chaos and riots, along with, I'm sure, vaccine mandates and everything else. That body of dreams is very small. However, I keep seeing things happen that were seen in those dreams, so that's building my confidence in those. But the dreams about riots and chaos and Americans killing each other, huge body of dreams about that. Lots, hundreds of Christians. Obama leading an army in phase 2. That body of dreams, if the riots and chaos dreams are like this, then Obama leading an army is more like this. There's a lot of them, but not as many. But the way I found them was, I myself had a dream about Obama leading an army, and I had no idea these dreams existed. And but then I went and searched after I had that dream myself and found all these dreams. The EMP dreams, huge body of dreams, been happening for 10 years. The Obama dreams, 9 to 10 years now, they've been happening. And he hasn't been on people's minds, and people were having them before he even left office. So it made no sense for people to have those dreams, yet they were. That all lends confidence. Now, the Russia and China dreams. Here's what you need to understand. Those dreams are off the chart. I can't even spread my arms wide enough to indicate how many dreams there are about that. Continually. Keep searching YouTube every day. People are adding dreams about them, about those events. People have been seeing visions and dreams about that invasion for at least 100 years. And there's some that believe that George Washington himself had a dream about it more than 200 years ago. So for me, I don't see how that event doesn't happen. There's just too much. And I can also share personally, I was teaching a year ago in the North Georgia mountains at a home group. I was teaching on Revelation. And I hadn't really talked about the dreams yet because I was just beginning to learn about them myself. And one of the guys popped up, raised his hand and said, "Hey, you want to hear something really weird?" And I said, "What?" He said, "About a year ago, I had a dream that we had been invaded by Asian soldiers." I said, "Oh." And then another man, his friend, raised his hand and said, "You want to hear something weirder?" And I said, "What?" He said, "The same night he dreamt that, I dreamt we had been invaded by Russian soldiers." So if you're still skeptical about these dreams, I'd like you to explain that one. And assuming they're not liars. I met them, I don't believe they were liars. There was fear in their faces, okay? They were highly concerned. They weren't making it up. And yet one had a dream about Asian soldiers, the other about Russian soldiers. They had the same dream, the same night, just different ethnicities, and everybody else has seen both ethnicities invading simultaneously. So, frankly, the evidence for this coming invasion is overwhelming. And so really the big question is, what do you do? How do you get prepared for this? I'll probably do some more videos on this to just help you. But the number one thing is, don't fear. I know that sounds crazy I'm not posting these dreams to instill fear. I'm posting them to help you know what God is saying and what's coming so you can be prepared spiritually and physically, okay? We've talked about how to prepare in some of the other videos. Mainly, you need to be abiding in Christ and in fellowship with other believers. You need to be increasing your spiritual obedience in church, reading the Bible, and praying. If you're doing those things well, and if you're trying to be more and more obedient to Him every day, many, many people have seen that Christians walking well with Him are supernaturally protected during these times. So there's no need to fear. And really, that is the main preparation. The EMP, I think, is the only one you can really physically prepare for, which is storing up food and water and other things you might need if you don't have electricity for that amount of time. And hopefully you can save up enough that you can provide for your neighbors and friends and other believers, right? The other physical recommendation is get out of the cities. If you live in an urban area, the message is you need to move. I mean, you need to move. If these dreams are going to start coming true, you need to move. People in the cities don't do well. The people in the countryside do much better. Okay, they're not free from problems, but they do a lot better. So that's it. That's the recommendations I've got. Feel free to comment. Feel free to connect with me. I'm here to serve. I'm here to help. But don't be afraid.